let's go on to the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Sorry, Zach, we have to talk about this football game. We mentioned last week that the Chiefs' defense might be the best we've ever seen for a Patrick Mahomes-led team. And coming into this game, they were the second leading scoring defense in the NFL. And they carried that over against a really explosive Miami offense in the first half, held the Dolphins to 110 net yards, 0 for 5 on third down. They sacked Tua, that magic number, 3 times. We said if they get to him, they're going to win this football game. The Dolphins are now 0-3 when Tua is sacked 3 or more times. They held him to a season-low 193 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, only 62 yards on 8 catches. Even when the offense sputtered for Kansas City, the defense stepped up and made plays when they had to. So we can go back and look at this and say, yeah, Mahomes and Kelce kind of struggled from time to time, but this Chiefs defense, they showed what the Chiefs do is they show you who's boss over and over again.
You guys are
they look a little weak. Oh, come on. I hopped on the bandwagon for my guy.
I lone wolfed the Kansas City Chiefs off a loss. I knew there was no world they're losing this game.
They sent a message today, though, because they looked real vulnerable against the Broncos. And the Dolphins are one of those teams who are trying desperately to get a big win. And even in a game when not everything went right, now the fumble recovery was huge, but not everything went right for Kansas City, they still find ways to win. They're still doing that. And I think this is them saying, you know what, until someone knocks us off, we're sitting at the top.
Well, this is what makes the Chiefs, we were saying last episode, so dangerous, particularly this year, is Mahomes doesn't have to look fantastic. The offense doesn't have to look fantastic, which they really didn't. And their defense steps up, allows just 14 points against the best offense in the league and one of the best, probably their highest competitor in the AFC, and they win the game, which is scary to think about. And I want to bring up one thing I said in the last show during our preview about this game, is I wanted to see how the Chiefs could kind of get some other players involved on offense if it's not Travis Kelce. And at least throughout the first half, when they got up to a 21-0 lead, they did a good job of doing that.
Kelce didn't touch the ball today. As a fantasy, I put out a tweet and said, I'm talking to my OC right now. Why can't we get Kelce involved in this?
Other guys were getting involved. Boom, it's 21-0 off the bat. Chiefs offense is looking good. But then here comes Miami. They kind of settled in. Their defense was playing well. The Chiefs offense wasn't playing great, but yet the Chiefs defense was awesome. They're really, really tough to beat.
You know, I just want to say, before Ziggy goes here, it still is concerning, though. Kansas City didn't score in the second half. Like, that is, we mentioned the one concern is that the offense at times can look lost. And in the second half today, they allowed Miami to come back into this football game. You know, Mahomes had the fumble. When Travis Kelce isn't involved, like you said, sure, Mahomes spread it around today, but it's very clear.
For a half, really. Not the second half.
It's really clear when they're struggling that, you know, it's not the same Chiefs offense that we've seen year over year. So they're still trying to find their way. The players are saying that. The coaches are saying that. I'm imagining it'll come together, but that's still something, if you're a Chiefs fan, to have in the back of your mind. They're a really dangerous team, but the offense is still not there.
No, I mean, they're hard to beat, but they are beatable. For sure.
Ziggy, what do you think? Is it how concerned are you with the offense right now?
Not very. I'll tell you what this Chiefs team reminds me of. They remind me of like the 2000s Patriots dynasties in the following way. The Chiefs know that they don't have to worry about the regular season one bit, right? They are making the playoffs and they are probably making the 1 seed no matter what they do. So you see every single game they come in with a different offensive game plan because they're just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Different people are getting the ball every game. Formations are looking different. Like, they keep coming in with new things, trying to see what works and what doesn't, so that when you hit the playoffs, they'll have a good idea of what they can work with. And I think that's what the Chiefs are doing, right? You've talked about how the offense isn't consistent. They keep trying different things. They keep getting the ball to different people. And they are still 7-2 with a top 5 defense and by the numbers, a top 5 offense. Like, let's not forget, I get that neither team scored in both halves today, right? It was the Chiefs in the first half, the Dolphins in the second. But holding Miami to 14 points is not nothing. Like, the Chiefs just turned in a pretty complete performance, even if nothing was really working in the second half. They avoided terrible mistakes on offense. They were able to get it done. So no, I'm not worried. They're still in the experimental phase. They're still 7-2. The playoffs are probably going through 1 seed Kansas City this year. They got nothing to worry about.
Somehow they.
Meanwhile, the Dolphins, The Dolphins have still not beat we only beat up on bad teams and can't beat a single good team in the NFL allegations.
Yeah, it's another big game loss for Miami.
You know what really does stink though is they so could have won this game.
I know, but
they got big stops late. They had the ball in Chiefs territory late, and they couldn't.
But that is exactly. I know I picked the Dolphins, but didn't I exactly say that this is the kind of game that the Chiefs win and that the Dolphins find ways to lose?
That's why I picked the Chiefs.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah.
Again, support you guys. But this year against teams below 500,
0-3.
Below 500.
Oh.
The Dolphins 6-0, 39 points per game, winning by about 18 points per game. Against teams above 500, 0-3, only scoring 17 points per game, and the margin of victory, and they're losing by 16 points is because of Buffalo mainly. But you're not going to shake this narrative until eventually you get a big win. And other than Buffalo, the Eagles game was really close. The Chiefs game was really close. So they're right there. But it's just, you think about the miscues, the Tyreek Hill fumble. You can't have that happen with 45 seconds left in the half. That is a backbreaker. And then on the final drive, we were sitting in Zach's house watching it. Raheem Mostert rips off a 25-yard run and a 19-yard run. You're threatening. They completely abandon that. And even though they abandoned the run, which we didn't, Ziggy was begging for them to run the football in our group chat. They had 2 throws on 3rd down, 4th down, where you should have hit Cedric Wilson. I don't know what happened. It came out to his hand, right? Just slipped out of his hand. That should have been a touchdown. And on the 4th down play, he drops a snap. As soon as he dropped it, I looked at Zach and said, you had Waddle right down the middle, wide open, run down the seam.
I was.
So it would have tied the game.
I remember I was punching the wall at that point too because I had Waddle as a fantasy owner.
Wide open.
I could really, really use that. What would have been 8 points or something.
But that doesn't help the narrative that Tua can't win big games when he's missing that throw and he's dropping the snap. Even though it's just one out of a bunch of plays during the football game, Miami doesn't make the play.
And we said this on the last show. A loss like this is bad for them because now they're pretty much guaranteed to go on the road to Arrowhead in January in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll see. They're still.
I mean, they're 2 games on Kansas City now.
It's tough to make up that ground on a team like the Chiefs.
Not the Chiefs, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like the rest of their schedule is easy, right? They still host the Cowboys. They still go to Baltimore. They still host the Bills.
Well, that's the end of the year, right? The very end of the year.
But there are tough games left for them.
The Chiefs have tough games too, but they're all at home. It seems to always work out like that.
You're going to see what Miami should roll. We said against teams below 500, they're crushing them. So they should roll for a few weeks. When they get Dallas, Baltimore, and Buffalo, we're going to see where they stand heading into the playoffs. And if you can get 2 out of 3 there, I think 2 of them are at home, right? Buffalo and Dallas are in Miami. Let's see if they can win those games. Let's see if they can beat Baltimore on the road. If they get those, you could be back in the spot where you say this team is rolling. But I said if they lost this game, they were not winning the Super Bowl. Now, that's a little exaggerated. But what I meant there was going on the road and winning against these teams is really tough. And today was one that when you look at all those miscues we just mentioned, it's hard to not look back with some regrets.
It's exaggerated.
Here's the thing the Dolphins absolutely have to fix if they want to win these games. They have to start treating the big games like any other game. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't intimidated by anyone. They have their game plan. They will execute it. They'll consider their opponent. They'll figure out the strengths and weaknesses. But once they've got their plan, they will not be moved. The Dolphins against the Chiefs today moved away from what made them good. The Chiefs have a terrible run defense by the advanced numbers. The Dolphins have an incredible running game by the advanced numbers and by the ridiculous yards they put up. And it seemed like they only ran as a last resort. It put Tua in a tough spot. It meant that the Chiefs could easily prepare for the pass. And it meant that other than Tyreek Hill, no one was really able to get going in the air.
Well, they started to run a little bit more in the second half, and that's when you saw some success.
Yeah, and then the second they scored 2 touchdowns, they moved away from it. It's like they thought the Chiefs are an offensive juggernaut.
It was the second they got 45 yards on the game-tying drive that they decided to move off, and it was like you had plenty of time. You still had 2 timeouts, right?
It's like they think because the Chiefs can throw the ball really well, they have to throw it too.
Zach,
so what I want to see...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, what I want to see is Mike McDaniels. He knows what this team's good at. He just needs to come up with game plans that emphasize those strengths and execute them, and then they'll put up 70.
Zach kicked a small stuffed animal against a wall after the after the 4th down play. So you said they looked scared at the beginning of the game. I was just. Can you just explain to me what you meant by that? It sounds like you agree with completely with Ziggy.
Complete with what Ziggy said. But like the first quarter, we just looked like we were just. I don't know what we were doing. Like nobody seemed confident in what they were doing. Like Tua didn't seem confident throwing the ball. Tyreek didn't seem confident catching the ball.
And that's where you mean like getting away from the game plan, right? Because the
right.
second half you opened it up a little bit more.
Yeah, we started running. We started doing what we did, and like we looked not scared. We were like, "Oh, look at this! We're marching down the field."
Yeah. Disappointing loss.
I
Poor
also,
Zach.
I also do think there is a world where all the Dolphins are hearing about is this whole narrative. And then once you fall down 7-0, 14-0, you're like, shoot, here we go again. It's kind of a mental type of thing.
The starts are huge where if you score first, you come out and like the anger and motivation are one thing. And then slipping into I guess we can't just win these games. I don't think that's happening with Miami yet. These guys are just wired differently in professional sports. But yeah, I'm always curious too, how much of a mental effect is there with people talking about it all the time now? Like, at some point you got to break it.
Even McDaniel said today, he said the only way to shake this narrative is to go and beat teams like this.
So we'll have to wait at least a few more weeks until I believe Dallas is the first one.
They'll be the Raiders by 50 next week.
That's a great bet next week.
Yeah.
Maybe the cap.
Whatever the
Maybe
spread
the
is.
cap.
That's the NFL cap.